Here we go. Recording in three, two, and one.
What? But they blew up the planet. How are they going to have a sequel? Oh, they go back in time.
Welcome to episode 258 of Nerdery Murdering.
Big 258. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the good and the bad, and the nerd and the murd. Um, but before we kick into to this week's episode, I just want to take a real quick second to give a little, I don't know, shout out's not the right word, but anyway, we've we've had a lot of new people finding the show lately, which is really cool. But more importantly, they're sticking around. So so we're not turning them right off. So if you're new here, welcome.
Hi.
Uh, and also just really thank you for deciding that listening to us two idiots talking into the void about nerdy stuff and murder was a good life choice. You know, we fully support that decision. Oh wow, I didn't have to pause here for the laugh track. Oh wait, sorry, I wasn't supposed to read that from the script anyway. I'm kidding. There's no, we don't have a script.
Oh, God, no. We
No,
have notes.
we have notes. There's no big production. There's no overthinking it. This is just us being us.
hmm
Um, and seriously, the show has always been about um really about two friends talking about the things we enjoy, the nerd side, the dark side, everything in between. This all came from the tabletop. So the fact that more of you are finding it and coming back week after week, that really does mean a lot. Whether this is your first episode or you've been here a while, we're really, really glad you've been here. You're here, and thank you for finding us and joining along with us as we two idiots talk. So with that, let's get into the episode itself. Just wanted to give a quick thank you to the new listeners. I have a couple of things I wanted to go over. Those of you who are watching online, you see my new background and Zig's new background. Zig's book, Fire Sign and Elvish Chronicle. Oh, Chronicle. Corkicle. He originally published it with the wrong title, which is funny.
Uh-huh. Yeah, those are rare now.
It's the Elvish War Chronicle. I have I can't reach it. It's over on my shelf. Sorry. I have my copy. I got it this week, but it's out. So really, really happy for him. Even though on our interview we had for this show, Zig informed us how we're nothing special as authors, and if we could do it, he could do it. Um,
That's not what I said.
that is sure as shit how it came across.
That's okay. That's not what I meant to say.
Yeah, well, it sure as shit is how it came across. That y'all are
What I
nothing
meant to
special.
say was like, look, they can do it. I- If they can do it, then I can do it. They're not that much more, they're not that much smarter than I am.
See, you're not helping yourself. You
I
are
still
you are
can't say that
proving
right.
no, you are proving my
I'm
point of what
very
I
proud
said.
of you, and I thought since I can do this, it was an impetus for me to do this. Maybe I should say
There
it
you
that way.
go. There you
Yeah.
go. There's an easier way for that one to go. But go back and listen to the interview. We talked all about the book. I've been through the book several times because I was pretty much Zig's beta reader.
Yes.
I went through what all five
Yeah.
edits
You
edit
got to see.
versions.
Yeah. I think there was five.
So go check it out. It is on Amazon. So
At
very,
this
very
point,
happy.
Jeffrey's second book should be out by now too, I would think.
By the time, yes, and that was actually my next thing is an update on the Darkwind Paradox, book two of the Prime Number series. It is currently my publisher is printing the author's copy now, so it should be in my hands within the next, I don't know, week or two, so that I can approve the final version and then we can get it to print. So I am targeting June for the release of the Darkwind Paradox. This episode comes out way before June. When does this
No.
episode come out?
Does it?
This episode, yeah, this episode comes out.
No,
I'll
this will
tell
be
you, I'll
after
tell you
June.
right now.
It's 258.
Well, no, I'm saying well. I said well after June.
Oh, well,
258
I thought you
is
said well before. I'm sorry.
7/19. I may have said before. I meant after. Yes, this episode comes out on July 19th. So the Darkwind Paradox should be out by the time this episode comes out. I'm really excited to get my author proof in my hands and get it out there. I might put it out on my anniversary. We'll see.
Nice.
Uh, 15 years.
15
Uh,
years. Congrats.
thank you. Did I show? Oh, I did. I showed you the ring I'm getting. So so I use tungsten rings. They're drop forged. You can't resize them. Once they're made, they're made. You're done.
Yeah.
You can't get them resized. And I get them because they're I mean, it's one of the hard I think it is the hardest metal out there. And it's supposed to be near unbreakable. So I'm very rough on rings. So I've always had tungsten, but I will be now on my fourth wedding ring because I lose weight and I can't wear the ring, and I lose weight and I can't wear
And you can't get it resized because it's
you
tungsten.
can't get it resized. And so the one I have now here on my hand that I'm changing, and I'm getting I was so it was so awesome because Chelsea found it first, and God love her that she found this first, but I'm getting a silver tungsten ring with a spinner on it because I fidget with my ring all the time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and on the spinner, it's got the Hoth battle theme, which is really, really cool. And
That is pretty cool.
inside the ring, I'm very curious how this is going to go, but they said I can put a picture on the inside of the ring, and I'm having the prime numbers
Oh,
logo
nice.
on the inside. So we'll see how that comes
Nice.
out. I should have that here within a couple of weeks, so I'm excited about that. But anyway, um, potentially have the book out by my anniversary, but I do want to throw out there a couple of things. Is number one, if you've read Prime Numbers and you're looking for more, I do have a mailer list that you can sign up for on the Prime Numbers Facebook page. There's a link to it. There are short stories in there, which I had a lot of fun doing. I can admit the one with Primus and Darkwind is probably my favorite. I think there's probably the coolest scenes I ever wrote for Darkwind in that one, especially the
Yeah.
one where the guy turns around and Darkwind's just holding the picture and they said, "Hold still," and then
Hold still. Hold still. Don't
um.
move.
But there's
Hold
but there's
still.
four short stories out there. There's one of Primus and Darkwind, one of Athena and Cedric, one of Fawn and Simon, and then one of Whisper by himself, which is very, very noir the way it
Yes.
is. So go out there and check those short stories. I think they're really cool. But the other thing is, if you have read Prime Numbers and if you have read Firestein, please, please, please leave a review. I know we talk about this at the end of our show, how it helps our show. You have no idea what that does for an independent author to leave a review because Amazon doesn't even really pay attention to you until you have 20 plus reviews.
Yep.
So to really start pushing it, you've got to have those reviews. So if you have read them, please take a minute and give a review. I know that's not a normal thing for people to give reviews, but it really helps us. So anyway, so there was that. The last thing I had on here, I saw on the Nerdery Murdery Facebook page a post, and as soon as I saw the post, I was like, "Oh wow, that's really cool. That's Fort Worth. Does Zig know about this? The movie Mutant. Have you seen this?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Fort Worth,
think I'm the one that posted it.
okay, Fort Worth Cinema or fwcinema.org.
Yeah.
That's really cool. They're doing all these things where they're trying to get all these older movies out to people, especially it looks like it's older. Um, what am I trying to say?
Well, B movies,
B movies. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Yes.
exploitation cinema.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what it looks like they focus on. And they do it in these little um community buildings, churches,
Uh-huh.
blah blah
Yep.
blah blah
And
blah.
there's usually like a little carnival atmosphere out
Yeah.
beside of it. One of the one of our fans, uh, Prickly Pear,
Hmm.
uh, I can never get that
Prickly
right.
Pear Creations.
Thank
Is that
you,
right?
thank you. Yeah, I am so bad about that. Prickly Pear Creations. Basically, they run a special that if you show that you're a listener to Nerdery Murdery, you get a free enamel pit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they've been doing it for a couple of years now. But they go to these things and set up at these little stalls, and she makes jams and little trinkets and stuff. It's just there's all this stuff going on at these little events. I've been to a couple of them.
That's really cool. Shout out to them. That's really cool. But I wanted to give a shout out to the Movie Mutant. I actually reached out to them and told them that I would be highlighting them on the show because I think it's really important that we get um, local cinema, local authors, local whatever, Fort Worth wise or down here in the valley, highlight them and get people to check them out. But that fortworthcinema.org, I would be really interested in that if I still lived in Fort Worth because that looks really, really cool. They they kind of make me think of um that group that used to tour with Rocky Horror. Was it the La Basteros?
Los
Bas
Bastardos, they still do.
Bastardos? Do they?
Yeah, they're the ones that are
Um,
doing it now.
Rocky Horror. It made me kind of think of them, a local group that's trying to keep some older stuff still in the limelight, if you will, or spotlight. That's what I'm looking for. So Fort Worth Cinema, fwcinema.org. Check out their website. If you're local to Fort Worth, check out their events and go to them. Big shout out to them because I've been
Yep.
following them now that I've discovered them, and they're really really cool. So
Yeah, yeah. Go check out one of the events too, because again, you get movies. There's usually live music.
yeah.
They've got all these little local artist stalls and stuff. It's just a good time, and it's honestly not that expensive, which is great.
That's really cool. Oh man, I did have one other thing. Speaking of not expensive, so we don't get the big concerts down here. The
Yeah,
big mainstream acts. We're down here in the Rio Grande Valley. We're a smaller area. I mean, all of Rio Grande Valley is barely bigger than Fort Worth. Just
and it's
barely.
and it's a long narrow strip.
Yes, yes, along the Mexico border down to the coast and everything. Um, but we do get a lot of smaller shows that come through here, and we get older acts. I said that I saw Asia and Lou Graham, which was really cool. But I'm on the mailer list for this arena down here, Payne Arena, and I didn't get a notification for this until like Wednesday of this week. Uh, and I was like, "Oh my God, they're going to be in town. I have to go to this." Uh, but then apparently it was canceled, and I don't know why. But Emerson, Lake and Palmer was going to
Oh,
play
okay.
Friday
Yeah, yeah.
night.
You were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, and granted, it's just Emerson that's still alive. It's only one of them. It's only one of the
Yes.
three that's still alive, and so he has other artists with him, but he's doing all their all their music and everything. And I would have loved to have seen that. I mean, that that's a prog rock thing. That's a me thing. I love me some
There's a
prog
lot to be
rock.
said with about prog rock. I'm
Oh,
not I am not anti prog rock at all. I mean, some of it I think was a little overplayed, but yeah, no, prog rock is it's cool. Like King Crimson's one of my favorite bands.
sure. I mean, some of it could have been later. I mean, hell, our the soundtrack I made for Nerdery Murdery Signals and Shadows, that's a prog rock experiment.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
The soundtrack I made for Prime Number is prog rock. Oh, speaking of, we have three albums out now. We have Nerdery Murdery the soundtrack Volume 1, Volume 2, and Signals and Shadows. So get out there if they're on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, anywhere you can find
Yep.
your music, it's out there. So the soundtrack Volume 1 and 2 is all of our end show music that we've used from time to time. I picked some of the best ones and threw them out there. Uh, I'm curious to see how many on Volume 2 listen to Starlight Engine Ascending and go, hey, that song is all chopped up. Yes, it's intended to be. It's it's
It's
it's
supposed to be.
all well. I mean, it's supposed to be kind of a visual of a ship that is going in and out of hyperspace and into battles and things like that.
Oh,
Because there's a
nice.
there's a place in the song where it really kind of tapers off and it sounds like it's gonna come to an end, and then it kicks right back up again, and then the very end of the song it's crescendoing and then off
Because it went
like
into hyperspace.
or it blows up.
Yeah.
Your
Oh, okay.
choice, whichever one you want. Uh,
Whichever you desire.
Yeah. So I'm
Nice.
curious if people listen to that, if they go, hey, that just chopped off at the end. Yes, that is intentionally, very, very intentional. I got it chopped off as much as possible. But anyway, go listen to those. There's some really, really cool stuff. Signals and Shadows now has almost 1,000 downloads.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, people really like
Uh,
Signals and Shadows.
yeah. Like I said, that's my prog rock experiment, and people really like it. But anyway, go out and give those a listen because Volume 2 came out this week. So anyway, there you go. That's all I had. You got anything you want to take us over on the nerdy side of the house?
Take us over on the nerdery side of the
Hey,
house.
wait, hold on. How long have we been recording so far? Like about 12, 13 minutes, and we're just now getting into the topic for that reviewer who
Well,
mentioned that.
we had to let people know what was out, what was coming, and some other stuff.
I'm just teasing because we had that one review where they said 20 minutes in and they haven't gotten to the main theme yet. Well,
Oh yeah, that's
That's
right.
that's us.
20 minutes in. Hey, some episodes are like that. Sometimes we go straight in.
And sometimes
Uh,
we don't.
yeah. Sometimes we just kind of dance around it.
Right.
Sometimes there's not a lot of information too. And some of this stuff is pretty fucking obscure, kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Matter of fact, we have an episode coming up that is pretty fucking obscure. So obscure that when I went to make the graphic for that episode, and I won't give it away because it's coming up, but I went to go look at the graphic episode, and I actually had to Google what the damn thing looked like because I had no idea.
uh, Today we're going to talk about Escape from the Planet of the Apes and Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. This is one of our
Awesome.
Planet of the Apes episodes. As I said, we're doing a few more of these long treks where we take a piece of an IP and just kind of talk about the pieces of it as it
Hmm.
progresses. We've done it with Star Trek, we've done it with Star Wars.
We're not done with
Um,
Star Trek yet.
no, 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 no.
We're not done with Star Wars yet.
No, no. Doctor Who, Doctor Who.
Doctor
We're
Who, we're
almost done with
almost
Doctor
done.
Who. Yeah.
Almost.
Well, until we get more doctors.
Right.
The anthology series, the science fiction and fantasy anthology series that have been we're doing one of those too. We're slowly working our way through that. But in this case, we're going to talk about Planet of the Apes. We're going to talk about Escape from the Planet of the Apes and Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. We'll start with Escape. Escape from the Planet of the Apes is a 1971 American science fiction film directed by Don Taylor and written by Paul Den. The film is the sequel to Beneath the Planet of the Apes and the third installment in the original Planet of the Apes film series. It stars Roddy McDowall, he came back, Kim Hunter,
Thankfully.
Bradford Dillman, Natalie Trundy, Eric Braeden, Sal Mineo, and Ricardo Montalban.
¿Qué es muy macho? ¿Fernando
Ricardo
Lames o
Montalban.
Ricardo Montalban?
Es
Montalban.
Ricardo Montalban.
For those
In
of
the
you who don't know that reference, it's an old Saturday Night Live skit. So
Yes,
anyway,
que es muy macho.
¿qué es muy macho? ¿Fernando Lames? Ricardo
Ricardo
Montalban.
It is Ricardo
Montalban.
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 In the film, Cornelius, again played by Roddy McDowall, and Zira, Kim Hunter, flee back through time to the 20th century Los Angeles, where they face fear and persecution. Escape from the Planet of the Apes was released in the United States on May 26, 1971 by 20th Century Fox. The film received a mainly positive response from critics and is generally considered the best sequel of the original Ape series. Escape was followed by Conquest of the Planet of the Apes in 1972. Despite Beneath the Planet of the Apes ending in a way that seemed to prevent series from continuing, 20th Century Fox still wanted a sequel. Roddy McDowall in the franchise documentary Behind the Planet of the Apes said that Arthur P. Jacobs sent Beneath screenwriter Paul Dinn a telegram that read, "Apes exist, sequel required." Dinn decided to bypass the destructive ending of Beneath by having Cornelius and Zira travel backwards in time in Taylor's spaceship with the polymath ape scientist who repaired it. Dinn consulted Pierre Boulle, author of the original novel, to imbue his script with similar satirical elements. The screenplay, originally titled Secret of the Planet of the Apes, accommodated the smaller budget by having fewer people in ape makeup and attracted director Don Taylor by its humor and focus on the chimpanzee couple. Dinn added to the later part of the film allusion to racial conflict and religious overtones, particularly an allegory of the story of Jesus. A line of dialogue has the president comparing the plan to kill an unborn child to the massacre of the innocents. While Kim Hunter had to be convinced by the studio to make Beneath, she liked the script for Escape and accepted the job. Hunter said, "I was very glad I was killed off and that Zero was not required anymore after that film." Hunter said that despite the friendly atmosphere on the set, she and Roddy McDowall felt a sense of isolation for being the only people dressed as chimpanzees. Well, it was three of them. Production was rushed due to the low budget and was filmed in only 6 weeks, from November 30th, 1970 to January 19th, 1971. Prior to Earth's destruction, the chimpanzees Cornelius, Zira, and Dr. Milo salvaged and repaired Taylor's spaceship and escaped the planet. The shockwave of Earth's destruction sends the ship through a time warp that brings the apes to 1973 Earth. The apes are transported to the Los Angeles Zoo under the observation of two friendly scientists, Dr. Stephanie Branton and Dr. Lewis Dixon. During their stay there, Dr. Milo is killed by a zoo gorilla. A presidential commission is formed to investigate the return of Taylor's spaceship and its inhabitants. During the interrogation, Cornelius and Zira deny knowing Taylor. They reveal, however, that they came from the future and escaped Earth when a war broke out. They are welcomed as guests of the government, and the apes secretly explain to Stephanie and Lewis how humans are treated in the future and tell them about Earth's destruction. The scientists are shocked but still sympathetic and advise the couple to keep this information secret until they can gauge the potential reaction of their hosts. Um, this has a real this film has a real Cold War feel to it. Again, it's
Hmm.
1971, so that's
Hmm.
not surprising. Um, it was the most inexpensive because they only needed three chimpanzees for this. Well, five if you count the actual real chimp. Actually, it was three chimpanzees costumes, a real chimpanzee,
Right.
and a little baby puppet.
Right. These two movies were also um, cinematography wise probably the best two shot of the series.
I would agree with that. This one and the one right after that we're going to be talking about today.
Well, and what this one does, I don't know if you're going to touch on this or not, but what Escape from Planet of the Apes does, and I apologize, it's been a very long time since I've seen both these, but I remember them well. Escape basically sets up a bootstrap paradox,
Yes.
because Caesar exists because the apes came back in time, but they only came back because of the future where Caesar already existed.
Yes.
It's just like Terminator. It's a whole bootstrap
It
paradox,
is a bootstrap paradox.
which I talked about this before. I think Terminator got some from this.
Oh yeah. Oh definitely. Oh definitely. The idea of the bootstrap paradox because not a lot of science fiction writers touched on the bootstrap paradox. They would touch on the grandfather's paradox,
Hmm.
but not the bootstrap paradox. The grandfather paradox is you can't go back in time and kill your own grandfather because then you don't exist, so you can't go back in time and kill your own grandfather.
Right. Right.
The
But well,
bootstrap
if
paradox is the paradox, as Jeffrey alluded to, is that you set up your own history.
right, that's the whole thing where people talk about if you went back to kill Hitler before he took rise in Germany, would you, to stop World War II?
Yeah,
Well, if you listen to Dr. Bruce Banner, he will tell you that's not how time travel works.
yeah, that's
That
not how time.
if you go back and change something, you set off an entire new timeline.
Yeah, where you
That
don't
your
need to go back
timeline,
and
yeah, your timeline still exists, but now you've got a separate timeline that you're on.
that's right.
The Sorcerer Supreme in Avengers Endgame said that whole same thing.
Yeah,
You branched off a branch of
yeah.
reality.
Well, they talk about it too, and they
Loki,
actually explain it on a board in Back to the Future.
yes,
Yeah, Doc Brown's like, no, no. Here's what you've done.
yes.
Here's your timeline. Here's where you've branched off.
Yeah, so I mean, that whole theory is you can't go back in time and change your current timeline. You
Mhm.
create an entire new timeline
Yeah.
when you change something.
So in this film, it's a role reversal. So you've got the apes who basically they get out of the ship and they're walking around and they realize they've gone back in time and they're a world full of humans. And at first they don't speak because they're afraid to. And then eventually they just start speaking because Zira's just like, I'm done with this. Look, I don't like bananas. And Dr. Milo's just this brilliant ape scientist. And they explain to them, basically what happened, that they come from a world just as that's just as hardcore as the one that they're sitting in. But humans are the ones that are downtrodden. Most of them don't speak, in the world they're from. And it takes place in was it LA or New York? Was it supposed to be LA? I think it was supposed to be
Think it was L.A.
yeah, I think it was supposed to be LA. But it's very gritty and very 1970s crime drama that like as Jeffrey alluded to the cinematography, it has that bent of 1970s crime drama, the dirty streets of the city, that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, what it does, it's reflecting the 1970s anxiety that really centered around authority, control, and rebellion.
Hmm.
And the movie very much portrays that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It's all over that film. Um, talk about the cast again. We got Roddy McDowall, Kim Hunter, Bradford Dillman, Natalie Trundy, Eric Braeden, William Wyndham. Sal Mineo plays Dr. Milo. Sal Mineo, most famously from Rebel Without a Cause. Albert Salmi, Jason Evers, John Randolph, Harry Lauder, M. Emmett Walsh as Aide. M. Emmett Walsh in one of his very early roles. Roy Glenn, Peter Forster, Bill Bonds, James Bacon, Ricardo Montalban as Armando, and George P. Wilbur as Boxer.
Hey, am I
Uh,
thinking wrong, or did I see? I could be thinking very wrong. Did I see very recently that Sal Mineo died?
no, Salminio died years ago.
Did he? Okay, then
Yeah,
I'm thinking of somebody else. Then okay, bygones.
yeah. I think, you know what?
I'll look
Hold,
it up.
please.
I'll look it up. You go on.
Okay. um, this film holds a 77% score on Rotten Tomatoes. I, 77% seems right. In a lot of people's opinion, this is the best Planet of the Apes film. I kind of disagree.
A lot of people think that. Yes, Sal Mineo
Yeah,
died in '76. By the way, I'm thinking of somebody else then.
I kind of disagree. My favorite is Beneath, but that's because it's got way more of a science fiction element to it. I just I just like the backgrounds more than anything else.
Hmm.
Um, and it kind of piqued my curiosity. But that's not to say that this is a bad film. I just prefer that one over this one. But honestly, these five films should be seen in a bookend, as we've discussed before.
Yep.
At least the first three. Um, you get a lot of a look at when the information is finally revealed, it scares the shit out of a lot of people. It's like, what? Yeah, yeah, you're heading to a world um where you're going to use orangutans, chimpanzees, and and uh, and gorillas as slave labor.
Hmm.
And eventually, something's going to come along that wipes out your society, and those slaves are going to take over.
Well, let's be honest about it. The whole franchise itself traps itself into a loop because humanity causes its own downfall
Hmm.
and then sends it back in time to make sure it still happened.
Yes, yes.
You know, I, it's the human's fault that it happens.
Hmm.
Um, because Caesar Caesar is a product of trauma
Yes.
and honestly inevitability. He's raised in hiding. He loses his protector, and then he
Hmm.
watches systemic abuse. And so Caesar. That's why you have to get to the later movies because Caesar is not born a
That's why I did these
revolutionary.
two together. Because
Yeah.
again, I think these these two and the first two before it should definitely be viewed as
Oh
basically
yeah.
one
Yeah.
long
Yeah. Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. 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 But Caesar is not born a revolutionary. He's
No,
pushed into it.
yeah.
Um, and
Caesar's
and
actually very kind. He's very helpful. He,
he Caesar becomes an anti-hero.
yeah, he loves his
Um,
father,
yes,
who is a human being, Armando.
but once Caesar is pushed across that line, the future becomes unavoidable.
Yeah,
The whole police state, the enslavement, the rebellion against oppression. Um, it's really wild. It's really wild. It's really interesting because I mean in it you've got dogs and cats that are dying, and
uh-huh.
humans turning into apes as pets, which leads into slavery. It's a very weird but very clever
Yeah,
domino effect
yeah,
that
yeah.
makes the whole premise seem believable.
And this movie, this particular movie, Escape, sets that up. You see this more in the next movie, which again we're going to talk about, Conquest. Um, about the whole thing about the cats and the dogs dying off, and
Hmm. Well,
but it's
and
actually starting to happen in this film. They just kind of you just kind of notice it off to the side.
an escape can kind of take you by surprise because it really kind of starts out almost um uh like a fish out of water comedy, and then
Exactly.
it turns dark.
Yeah, yeah. It is very humorous at the front.
Yes.
It is very humorous in the first, what, 20 minutes of the film.
roughly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it gets dark because Zira figures out that she's pregnant. So they have to escape because the powers that be are afraid of sentient apes.
Hmm.
Um, so they get out through the scientists and they meet up with Armando, who owns a circus, and they swap. She swaps her baby with the baby of an actual chimpanzee who'd just given birth. Um, you don't actually know that's going. They talk about it, but you don't actually know that's happening. Um, until you see the chimpanzee saying "mama,"
Right.
which is that's how the film ends. It closes on that chimpanzee's face. It's like "mama, mama, mama," because it's a sentient chimpanzee. Um, oh my God, and what a sympathetic character Armando is, as well as uh, Lewis Dixon and Stephanie Branton, the two scientists or the two veterinarian doctors at the
Hmm.
LA Zoo. Um, because they're basically trying to help. Well, if Dr. Milo at first, who gets killed by a gorilla, um, but they're trying to help Milo, Zira, and Cornelius basically survive because it's not their fault that humans enslaved apes and then uh, turned themselves into idiots, non-speaking idiots, and then got enslaved by the apes. They didn't do that. They believed that was wrong. My only problem with the narrative of this particular film, and I think I explained it earlier on, um, them knowing that humans used to control the world was a tightly guarded secret
Hmm.
in ape society. Now,
Hmm.
they got that information from Dr. Zayas at the end of the first film. Um, but in this, they know a lot more about it. So I'm not sure if once they got the information, Dr. Zayas let them read more because it started out with just a little scroll. Um, so I don't know if they got more of that information or
I would say they probably got more. I,
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
would
That,
say
that
is once
basically Dr.
the
Zayas gave them the book, like, look,
yeah.
this is the actual teachings of the great lawgiver, and this is what this is what
Yeah.
he was actually talking about.
Once it was out of the honestly, once that bottle's been uncorked, you're not going to cork it back.
Yeah, that's
I
true. And
mean,
it's better to have them, it's better to give them all the information and tell them you can't tell anybody about this because it will destroy our society. And I think
sorry,
that's probably
I guess I used the wrong analogy. You can't unring that bell.
no,
You
that
know,
bell cannot be unrung. It's already been
no,
rung.
they now know, so you might as well tell them everything.
Yeah, yeah. And so they have that information at the time that they're on the planet Earth. That's the only thing that always bothered me. But my assumption always was, well, Dr. Zayas just told them everything
Mm.
since they already knew. And it's like, yeah, the reason we don't go to the Forbidden Zone is because you will find out that humans enslaved us and killed themselves off and nearly killed us off too.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a lot of that is an undercurrent through this film. Um, and when the humans start talking about sterilizing the apes and studying them so they can keep them from coming back, it's like, well, of course they did. Cornelius is like, well, of course they are. That's what they did. Like this is old news to him. Um, and again, like a year earlier, he assumed they were speechless hominids who stole crops. It's amazing. I love this whole story arc. The idea of the bootstrap paradox. This is a lot to take in. And what's amazing about these films is these movies were big. This is the reason. This is the reason why Star Wars got greenlit because they had some movies in the 70s, science fiction movies in the 70s that did really, really well. Enough that they could spawn off toy lines and a television series and an animated series as well, plus 5 films.
Hmm.
20th Century Fox did really well with Planet of the Apes. Matter of fact, that was the last thing they did that was successful until Star Wars or A New Hope. The next film, since we're just kind of got to transition in, is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. It is a 1972 American science fiction film directed by J. Lee Thompson and written by Paul Dehn. The film is a sequel to Escape from the Planet of the Apes and the fourth installment in the original Planet of the Apes film series. It stars Roddy McDowall, Don Murray, Ricardo Montalban, Natalie Trundy, and Harry Rhodes. The film is set in a world that embraces ape slavery. Caesar, the son of the late Simeon Cornelius and Zira, surfaces out of hiding from the authorities and prepares for a rebellion against humanity. Conquest is the only Apes film without a pre-title sequence. The film script and novelization describe a nightmare pre-title scene where police on night patrol shoot an escaping ape and discover that his body is covered in welts and bruises as evidence of severe bruising or severe abuse. In later scenes, Governor Brett refers to the ape that physically assaulted his master, thereby prompting McDowell to report that the escape must have been the result of severe mistreatment. The scene appears in the first chapter of John Jake's novelization of the film and in the Marvel Comics adaptation of the film in the early 1970s, both of which were probably based directly on the screenplay and not the final edit of the film. An article in the summer of 1972 issue of Cinema Fantastique, Volume 2, Issue 2 by Dale Wanagura shows and describes the scene being shot, but it is unknown why it was cut. The Blu-ray extended cut does not contain the pre-credit openings. Conquest was released in the United States on June 14th, 1972, a year after Escape. The film received mixed reviews from critics. It was followed by Battle for the Planet of the Apes in 1973. J. Lee Thompson, who had maintained an interest in the franchise ever since producer Arthur P. Jacobs invited him into the original Planet of the Apes, was hired to direct Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Thompson had worked with Jacobs on two earlier films, What a Way to Go and The Chairman, as well as during the initial stages of Planet, but schedule conflicts made him unavailable during its long development process. So Thompson was originally greenlit to direct the first film. He just didn't get a chance to do it.
Question for you before you continue on.
Yeah.
Um, After you finish Battle, are you going to go into the new ones?
Mhm.
Okay.
I might talk about the series first because it's a
Okay.
different
Sure.
storyline.
No problem. No problem. Just asking. Go. Continue.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the
Okay.
series because it has a completely different timeline.
Hmm.
The series is actually way more like Pierre Boulle's novel. Thompson staged every scene with attention to detail, such as highlighting the conflict with colors. The humans wear black and other muted colors, while the ape suits are colorful. Don Murray suggested to Thompson his wardrobe with a black turtleneck sweater and rehearsed his scenes after translating his dialogue into German to get the kind of severe feeling of, well, Nazism. Screenwriter Paul Dehn wrote the film incorporating references to the racial conflicts in North America during the early 1970s. And Thompson further highlighted by shooting some scenes in a manner similar to the news broadcasts. The primary location was a Century City, Los Angeles, that had previously been part of the 20th Century Fox backlot and translated well as a bleak future with monochromatic buildings in a sterile, ultramodern style. Also used as a shooting location was the University of California, Irvine in Orange County. In addition, TV producer Irwin Allen contributed props and clothing to the film. He let the makers of Conquest borrow his Seaview jumpsuits from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Uh, Brown, they borrowed clothes and computers and cabinets for ape management that were used in the first time tunnel and other sets and props from other Irwin Allen projects. Of the five original films, Conquest is the only entry filmed in Todd AO 35 using Arriflex ARRI 35 2C cameras with lenses provided by the Carl Zeiss Group. The other eight pictures were filmed in Panavision. So the reason they used Arriflex is because they wanted it to look like a news program. Whereas the other ones are much wider in scope
Hmm.
because that's what Panavision does. It gives you big long vistas, right? These Arriflex cameras brought it in really tight, which was really common in the 70s. It was substantially cheaper to use these Arriflex cameras. I mean, comparatively to because I mean they're still pretty expensive. Um, that's why everybody's going digital now because it's so much cheaper to shoot a flick. Um, but they brought everything right up into your face. Whereas Panavision throws it out. You're looking at the skyline and the horizon. Yeah, Airflex puts it right up. You're basically putting your nose on the glass,
Hmm.
and that was the look they were going for, which makes sense for this film. Um, the original cut of Conquest of the Apes, they executed Governor Breck after a preview screening in Phoenix on June 1st, 1972. The impact of the graphic content caused the producers to rework the film, even though they did not have the budget to do so. Roddy McDowall recorded a compliment to Caesar's final speech, which was portrayed through edit tricks. Caesar being mostly shown through close-ups of his eyes, the gorillas hitting Breck with the butt ends of the rifles played backwards to imply they were acquiescing to Caesar's directive of non-violence, and assured a lower rating. The film's Blu-ray version adds an unrated version, restoring the original ending and many other graphic scenes. So basically, in the original cut, the guerrillas pick up rifles and beat Governor Breck to death with the butt ends.
Well, with
Um,
the original cut though, because like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen these. Um, the original cut had Caesar's speech.
yeah,
Actually, they both had Caesar's speech at the end, but the theatrical cut kind of
it just zoomed in on his eyes.
well, and it softened his speech,
Yeah,
whereas in the original cut, it's hell of a lot more intense and
yeah.
vengeful.
They basically beat Governor Breck just like the ape was beaten who was shot in the opening of the movie. It, it's a bookend, just like this whole series ties itself back together. This film, Governor Brett gets ended up beating just like that ape was beaten, which is why that ape escaped. Um, so some of the story of it. Following a North American pandemic from a spaceborne disease that wiped out all dogs and cats in 1983, the government
Oh, I'm
had
sorry.
become a
It's in this
series of
one, not the other one. I apologize that I'm kind of I'm mixing these together because
no,
it's
no,
a
no, no.
very
Well,
long
I mean,
time.
I kind of agree with you that they should be because it's actually started to happen in the other one. Even though you have to give Caesar time to grow up, or
So, well,
Milo.
and so, to the point Zig said, I mean, if, and we said this in the last episode of that we did of this as well. If I were you, I would take a nice, bleak, rainy or snowy day, whatever it is for you, and decide you're going to watch these five movies together. If you can't do that, watch one and two together,
And then
then
watch three
watch
and four
three and
together.
four together, and then watch five. That's
Yeah,
how you should see these if
exactly.
you watch them separately. Because
That's how we're going to present
yes,
them.
because Escape and Conquest are they're really one
Yes.
story, one long movie that you need to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And the time jump is the time enough for baby Milo, Caesar, to basically become of age. So
Hmm.
there's I think it's for chimpanzees like 12 years. So in the story, there was a pandemic, and they took chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans as pets and then turned them into slaves. These events were foretold in 1973 as testimony by the two chimpanzee scientists who came from the distant future. Again, because we are assuming that Dr. Zayas gave them this information because they did not have this in the first film. Cornelius and Zero, before they were killed, widely believed to be dead. Their baby was secretly raised by the circus owner Armando as a young horseback rider. And in 1991, now fully grown and named Caesar, the ape is brought to one of the cities to distribute flyers for Armando's circus. During their trip, Armando advises Caesar not to speak in public for fear of his life. After seeing a gorilla being beaten and drugged, Caesar shouts, "Lousy human bastards!" Armando attempts to defuse the ensuing commotions by taking responsibility for the exclamation, where Armando basically says, "What I said was, stop it, you inhuman bastards." But none of them believe him. Those people heard that ape speak. Um, Armando is interrogated. Um, they put him in a machine that forces him to be psychologically truthful. He realizes he cannot fight the machine, and to protect Basically, his son, because Armando views Caesar as his son, Armando dives out the window, and it's a drop. I love Ricardo Montalban in this. He is so cool.
Okay, okay. Back that statement up. We love Ricardo Montalban in pretty much everything he does.
I
He was a
still say
fun.
he made the best science fiction movie of the 80s.
He is phenomenal in everything he does. And no, you're
Fucking good
wrong.
at
I know what you're
this.
saying, and no, he didn't. But anyway, um,
Oh, fucking good in this.
yes,
And,
yes.
and it's like he's cool, he's collected, he's calm. He's already worked out the plan in his head um as they take them in. And of course Caesar's being quiet. He's not saying anything. And when
Does
he
Ricardo
realizes
Mo-
he's about to get caught.
does Ricardo
What?
Montalban do anything where he's not cool?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, thank you. Because I mean, that's just him. I mean, he's pretty much typecast when it comes to that. He's just
Yeah,
cool.
he's just fucking cool. Well, he is.
Yes.
And but he realizes that he's not going to be able to hold back the truth. So he dives out the fucking window to save his son. And it's like, wow, that is the turning point for Caesar because Caesar then gets put into the ape um the ape let's call it meat grinder. He gets put in to be a slave, and he starts a little revolution, and he befriends some of the people with him, some of the scientists. You got we'll talk about the we'll talk about the cast again. So Roddy Bechdel comes back, not as Cornelius this time, but as his son, Caesar. We got Don Murray as Governor Breck, Ricardo Montalban as Armando, Natalie Trundy as Lisa, Harry Rhodes as McDonald. Harry Rhodes, McDonald is basically his friend, um, who agrees that what they're doing is terrible. Basically, McDonald is Cornelius, but instead of he doesn't believe that apes should treat humans as vermin or subjects. McDonald's doesn't believe that apes should be treated as slave labor or pets because he thinks it's wrong because they're intelligent beings. Um, we got Severin Darden as Culp, Lou Wagner as a busboy, John Randolph. That's about it. Paul Compey, Gordon Jump. Oh, Gordon Jump from WKRP in Cincinnati is an
Oh,
auctioneer
oh, yeah,
at
yeah,
a
yeah,
slave
yeah, yeah,
auction.
yeah.
Yeah, which is fun. He's only in it for a minute, but it's pretty cool to see that. He's very young too, very young. Gordon Jump. Um, McDonald understands Caesar's intent to depose Breck, but expresses his doubts about the revolution's effectiveness. Caesar is later captured by Breck's men and is electrically tortured into speaking. Hearing him speak, Breck orders Caesar to be killed. With McDonald's help, the heroes manage to trick Breck into believing Caesar died. Once Breck leaves, Caesar kills his torturers and escapes. And then he starts a revolution. Um, and here's the part where this breaks down for me. The apes could not speak at this point, and they just figured it out during this revolution. So in the next film, all the apes speak. Um, this is the part of the film that I kind of have a problem with, which is why I liked the newer versions of Planet of the Apes. The apes learned to speak because they were genetically modified. Now, it is possible that that has happened with these apes too. They just never say it. Like the piece of information for Dr. Zayas, that
Hmm.
the apes just figured out how to talk. I don't think so. I think much like the later films, I think that they genetically modified these poor creatures to make them smarter so they could be waiters and stuff. And this allowed them to be able to speak. But I don't know. I don't know. They just start talking in the film. Um, that is my only problem with this particular film. And I think, I think if they'd have thought about it a little more, they could have just added a couple of lines of dialogue and it would have rolled along. In the later films, that is a central point, is that they basically uplifted the apes.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, everybody in this is so good. Of course, Roddy McDowell is great as Caesar, because unlike Cornelius, who is basically a pacifist, Caesar's not. These motherfuckers killed his father.
Right.
He's had to go into hiding his whole life. They enslave his people. Um, he just fucking snaps. They torture him. He just snaps,
Well,
and
and
rightly so.
and really, what's wild about these two movies together, when you look at them as a whole, is this is not just apes replacing humanity.
No,
They're being shaped by humanity's worst traits. So it's not
yes,
evolution, it's inheritance,
yeah,
you know?
yes, yes, exactly. Um, God, I love these films, and the fact that they were able to thread these needles so well in 1971 and 1972
Hmm.
is amazing. Are the effects as good as they would be today? No, no. But are the effects believable? Yes, they certainly are.
Yeah,
They certainly are.
yeah.
I, I, I love both of these movies. Again, my favorite being Beneath, but it's because it's got more of a science fiction theme to it. But yeah, if you're gonna watch these, watch the first two together,
Yep.
then watch these two together, and then watch the final one by itself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's about it for Escape and Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Escape from the Planet of the Apes and Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. In our ever expanding series of geekery.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree with Zig. Definitely watch these as we're recommending, because I guarantee if you have not and you're interested in seeing these, this is how you will want to see it.
Yeah.
Either do all five in one sitting,
Hmm.
but if you can't, do the first two, do the second two, and then do the
The,
last one.
the last one by
Um,
itself.
because when you get to hear what's really wild, the scary part is not that the apes take over. The scary part is that they learned how to do it from us.
Yes.
That's the really
Yes.
wild thing about this, that you have to keep in mind as you watch these, and that's exactly why we've said watch them this way, either all together or the first two, second two, and the last one. And when we get to the last one, you'll see why it's a separate one.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, I appreciate that, Zig. I've
Sure.
enjoyed this. Again, these are from my childhood. Granted, they
Yeah.
came out before I was really aware of a whole lot of science fiction, everything, and so I saw them later. And I've seen them later in life. I haven't seen them in many, many years, but um, they'll stick with you.
Yeah.
They will stick with you. I think the last time I watched them was probably about the time that they did the reboot for the Mark
I
Wahlberg
honestly, when
one.
I was working on the first Planet of the Apes episode, I sat down and streamed them,
Hmm.
all of them, because you can. They're out there. You can go see them.
Yeah.
And I forgot how good they were, and I was actually watching them more or less to see if I could find any mistakes,
Hmm.
or where the special effects weren't believable. No, everything checked out. Again,
Oh
they're
no,
not as good as they would be today, but they
no,
were.
wait. I think there were. Isn't there a scene? Am I thinking of the wrong movie? Isn't there a scene where some of the apes are wearing Nikes? Isn't that in here? Or am I
I
thinking of something completely different?
I, I think that's in the next one because I'm pretty sure they're all barefooted.
Maybe,
Yeah, they
maybe.
wear these jumpsuits.
Yeah, something's kicking in my head that they were wearing out of place footwear. But anyway, I may be wrong on that. But anyway. Um, yeah, no, these are great. It's really kind kind of spawned me into wanting to watch them again because they're older sci-fi, so you're not going to get the special effects you have today.
No.
Uh, which is a series like this. Let me harken back to Star Trek because Star Trek what fell into this same mold. You had the original Star Trek, and then you had Star Trek Next Generation, which made sense because the technology in the new Enterprise was far more advanced than the original Enterprise. But then you go forward to Enterprise, and the tech on the ship was way more advanced than it was in the original series. And so you kind of get that here as well because and in Star Trek it was because special effect, was better and we could do better things. You're going to see the same thing here. You're not going to get the high-tech special effects that we can do today, which is all computerization more
Yeah.
than anything else that they
Yeah, all
didn't
these effects are
have.
practical.
Yeah. So you kind of got to take it as it is that, it's the special effects of the time, but take that away, take away the fact that the stories are phenomenal.
Yes, they are.
And that's why you should watch them. Just take away the fact you're not going to get the big production special effects that you would today, and understand that these stories are
Yeah.
phenomenal. So,
Paul Den, who basically I think wrote all of these, um, kind of had an idea. And
mhm,
20th Century Fox kept going, okay, let's do more.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he's like, okay, I got you. Because, at the end of Charlton Heston said he would come back for the second film, but they made it so the world was destroyed, so he would never have to do another one.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, thank
But
you for that. Get out there and
you're
watch
welcome.
it. I'm sorry. Did you have another point? Did I cut you
No, no,
off?
no, that was just, and Paul Den was just like, you know what? We could still keep the story going.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. All right. With that, I will step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off the Everett Herald, King 5 News, Fox 13 Seattle, Case Law, Medium, and Murderpedia. And this is the murder of Rachel Burkheimer.
Rachel Burkheimer.
So in September of 2002 in Sonoma County in Washington, there was an 18-year-old girl who got into a car with people she knew, friends, people she trusted, at least people she believed were her friends. They drive away from the city, they drive away from the lights, and they drive away from anyone who might hear her scream. When the car finally stopped, she realized that something was very wrong. There's too many of them. They aren't talking and they're not looking at her. They're looking at the ground because someone has already started to dig. And before this night is over, Rachel Burkheimer would be forced to kneel down beside her own grave while the people she once called friends decided whether she lives or dies. Um, Today's case, it's not about one killer, it's about a group. It's about the loyalty of friendship, it's about paranoia. And honestly, it's about how fear and suspicion can turn a circle of friends into a firing squad very quickly. Um, Before we get into it, I want to take one moment. I know if you've been listening for a while, that on the murdery side, I've been working my way through the A to Z serial killers across America, one state at a time, one case at a time. And we'll get back to that. We absolutely will. But every now and then, as I go through, because I'm on so many different lists, there's a case that comes along I just cannot ignore, and this was one of those. This one popped up, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Um, because this isn't a serial killer. It's not about one person acting alone. It's something very, very different. This is a group murder, and it was a planned killing. And honestly, it was a betrayal that was carried out by multiple people, all in the same place and all making the same awful decision. The details of what happened to Rachel Burkheimer in September of 2002 are honestly, they're so chilling, it deserved its own episode. So I'm stepping away from the A to Z series for just one episode to talk about a crime, honestly, that's as disturbing as it is heartbreaking. As I said, Rachel Burkheimer was 18 years old in September of 2002. She lived in Washington State, north of Seattle. And really, by all accounts, she was a lot like other teenagers at that age. She was very social. She had a wide circle of friends, and she was navigating that very complicated space between high school life and adulthood. And like most young people, the group she spent time with wasn't exactly stable. You get that at that age. We weren't. We're not stable now either, but whatever. Um, but you're learning how to navigate life. You're at a very early age. You're at a very early age at 18 years old where you think you're an adult and you think you fucking know everything. But let's put a fine point on it. You're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you don't know shit.
We were. We didn't know
Yeah,
shit. We thought we
didn't know
did, but
shit.
we didn't. Um, and that's really where this whole story goes. I'm not saying anything bad about our 18-year-old listeners out there, but understand you don't know what we know. When I was 30 years old, I looked back at 18-year-old self me and went, "You are a fucking idiot." And secondly, how did you not die?
Yeah,
You know,
I kind of
so
look at
many.
my 30-year-old self and think, man, you just kind of fucked some stuff up there, didn't
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
buddy?
My 50-year-old self can look at my 30-year-old self and go, "How did you not die?"
How did you not die?
You know, how did you manage to live? Uh, and so this is where this is that time of life that we're focused on here. Because Rachel, she had a very loose knit circle of friends. Um, they gave themselves a name. They called themselves the Northwest Mafia. Okay, that's a bad thing in the first place. They were not an organized crime syndicate. It's not anything like that, but it was just a group identity. This was a label they put on, and it was something that made them feel tougher, more connected, and more dangerous than they really were. Um, but the behavior inside the group had started to turn a much darker direction. There was a lot of rumors of drug use, robberies. There was paranoia within the group about loyalty. And there started to be this increasing sense that everyone inside the group needed to prove themselves. Rachel had actually dated one of the members of the group, John Anderson, who was sometimes referred to as Diggy. Their relationship ended, but she still remained connected to several of the people in that circle. She still saw people there, she still talked to them, and she still trusted them. And that's where this trust becomes a very critical factor. Because as I said, inside the group, suspicion had started to grow because someone inside the group was talking, or they believed someone was talking. And there were whispers that Rachel was the one that had shared information about the group that they should not have. They felt that she had betrayed the group and that she couldn't be trusted. And when you've got a group that's already fueled by insecurity and bravado, those accusations don't go away. They grow and they get repeated and they get exaggerated and they become something far bigger than they actually started as. Eventually, it was here that the idea took hold that Rachel wasn't just someone who couldn't be trusted, that she was a problem. And in their minds, problems needed to be handled. This is that whole mafia mentality they were sitting under. I'm doing the air quotes for those of you not watching. And this is where suspicion started turning into conversation, and the conversation started turning into planning, and it was this planning that turned into something much darker. Because instead of just confronting Rachel or just walking away or just cutting ties with her, again, this is where I say 18 years old, you're not making the smartest decisions in the world. They started discussing something far darker. They started talking about killing her. And uh, this is where the tone inside the group shifted. And this was no longer just suspicion and wasn't just talk. This is where things became a lot more serious. And it was definitely more deliberate and dangerous. Several members of the group had convinced themselves that Rachel had betrayed him and that she had either talked to the police or she had shared information about things they had done. And whether that was true or not didn't matter anymore because once this idea took, it spread. And when you get inside a group dynamic like this, no one wants to be the person that pushes
What
back.
were they doing?
They were doing robbery, they were doing drugs, or at least there was rumors of all this. So they were
Okay,
committing they're committing crimes.
okay.
And so no one's pushing back, and instead people are kind of agreeing and nodding and going along because disagreeing could make you look disloyal too. And so the conversation started shifting from can we trust her, to what are we going to do about her? And this is where the discussion crossed the line because they didn't talk about just confronting Rachel. They didn't talk about just cutting her from the group. They
Yeah,
were
yeah,
now
just drop
talking about
her.
killing her.
Yeah.
Um, and this wasn't just one person making this decision. This was something that developed collectively. It was a shared idea that gained momentum the more it was discussed, and they started to make these plans. What they decided, they would lure her to somewhere private, they would control the whole situation, and then they would decide what happened next. And the worst thing about this, oddly enough, when you talk about rumor mills and everything like that, Rachel had no idea any of this was happening.
No.
Um, in her mind, these were people she knew, people she trusted, people she spent time with, people she laughed with. She had no hesitation about trusting these people. Well, on September 23rd, 2002, the whole plan was set into motion. Rachel was invited to meet up, which wasn't unusual. There was nothing that seemed threatening. It was just another get together, another night with people she knew, and so she got into a vehicle very willingly. Inside, there were multiple members of the group, some that were quiet, some that were avoiding eye contact with her, but it was nothing that immediately screamed danger. So they just began driving. And gradually the surroundings started to change. They got out of the city into very quieter roads and very darker roads, then remote areas. Rachel had to realize something wasn't right at this point. This was not normal for them. They would normally be headed to a party and they weren't. They weren't heading to somebody's house, at least somebody's house they didn't know. They weren't heading anywhere normal. They were heading into the foothills, which is a very remote area and in a place where no one would hear her. And when the vehicle finally stopped, Rachel stepped out and it was just total darkness, surrounded by all these people she trusted. But now she wasn't among friends. She's among her killers at this point. Um, this is this is where it gets extraordinarily tragic. Um, because this was a chase chosen specifically because no one would be around. No one would hear anything. It was dark, it was isolated, and it didn't take long for everything to start turning for Rachel. She was confronted right there. She was accused of betraying the group, and she was accused of talking, accused of being disloyal. Um, the details of that vary depending on later statements, but the message was clear that she could not be trusted. In their minds, that meant she couldn't walk away.
Okay.
So,
I, I have a question.
mhm.
Just to square it up in my brain. Because I think I already know the answer. She wasn't talking to anybody, was she?
That's unclear. That's unclear. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. Um, um, it it's not clear.
Okay.
It was all rumors. It was all speculation. So we don't. I don't think we have definitive evidence. I think
Well,
there
I
may
mean,
have been some.
clearly, since we have this information, somebody in that group talked, if not all of them.
Well, they assume somebody talked. I mean, somebody was saying that
No, no, no.
somebody was
I
talking
mean,
about.
because we know what happened in the crime,
Yes,
they
yes,
all talked.
yes, and we get various testimony about what happens. The rest of the story is all kind of pieced together through from various accounts, but this is kind of all the common the commonality of it. Um, at some point, some members of the group forced her to the ground. She was restrained at that point, and some accounts described her as being bound. Some accounts described her as being held down and controlled physically. Either way, she had no way to escape at this point. And then at that point, this is where it gets really, really chilling because someone started digging right there in front of her a grave. And she was forced to watch this hole in the ground as it got deeper. The dirt was thrown aside, and she started realizing most likely what was going to happen. Um, and kind of sit in her shoes for a minute and think about that. She knew these people. These were people she trusted, and now she's watching them dig her grave.
Dig her grave.
Um, And according to later testimony, Rachel began pleading for her life. So she knew what was happening. She begged him not to do this, and she tried to reason and tried to convince him that they were making a mistake. But by this point, too many in the group had crossed the line. And so no one stepped in and no one stopped it. No one said this had gone too far. So instead, they continued. Rachel was forced near the grave and she was forced to kneel there, surrounded by multiple people, no one willing to help her. And then this is where it's really tragic. John Anderson, her ex-boyfriend, he stepped forward and he was armed. Um, and then several others standing very nearby watched as Rachel shot, or as John shot Rachel multiple times, um, which made her fall into the grave that had just been dug. And just like that, 18-year-old Rachel Burkheimer was dead, killed by a group of people that she trusted. Um, But this isn't where the crime ends because nobody panicked. And instead of shock and instead of someone saying, "Oh my God, what have we just done?" They moved to the next step. They buried her. They pushed the dirt back into the hole. They filled the grave and then they smoothed the ground. They concealed the crime and then they left. They drove away. They and carrying the secret with them and going back to their normal lives. And that's where some of this is very unsettling. There was no one unraveled, no one ran to the police, no one broke down. They just returned to their normal lives. They separated, they went home, and it was like nothing had happened at all. And Rachel's absence didn't go unnoticed. When she failed to
Well,
return
of
home,
course not.
no, her family, they're like, hey, she never came home. And like a lot of missing person cases, they had hope that she was just staying with her friends, that she'd show up and she'd call, but of course that call would never come. So this turned into fear. Rachel's family reported her missing, and police began looking into her disappearance, with investigators starting with the first most common step, identify who was last seen with her. Very quickly, that's where the trail led back to this group of people she had spent time with. And some of them admitted they had seen her, others were very vague, and some gave incomplete timelines. But the overall picture began to form that Rachel had last been seen with them. However, at this stage, there's no body, there's no crime scene, just a missing 18-year-old and a group of young people whose stories weren't quite lining up. So investigators began interviewing other people, trying to determine Rachel's movements, her relationships, whether she might have left voluntarily. But those who were closest to her made something very clear. This was not normal. She hadn't packed anything. She hadn't told anyone she was leaving. She hadn't cut off contact before. And everything about her disappearance told police something's gone wrong. Inside the group, the pressure of the police started building because they had all been there. They all knew what happened. And now, they've got the police asking questions. And at first they held on. They gave very little information. They just kind of shrugged their shoulders, and there were uncertain timelines. But the more people involved, the more people are involved in a crime, the harder it is to keep the story straight. And eventually, this is where the cracks began to show because when multiple people share a secret like this, someone always talks, and that's exactly what happened here. Investigators continued doing what they always do on a missing person case, and they built a timeline. They interviewed the friend, and again, the same name of friends kept coming up. This same group of people, the same circle she spent time with. And so detectives started interviewing them one by one. At first, they were very vague. Some claim they hadn't seen her long. Others say she left. Some simply said they didn't know where she went. But inconsistencies started to stand out. Timelines didn't match, details didn't line up, and some of the answers started to sound rehearsed. At this point, investigators learned about that name, the Northwest Mafia, and they'd heard about the tensions, the rumors and suspicions, and the allegations that Rachel had somehow betrayed them. But here, they didn't know anything, so nobody was talking. You had asked about that earlier. Nobody was. But that was information that raised red flags because this now looked like a potential targeted disappearance, and the pressure on the group intensified. There were follow-up questions and rechecking of statements, and with each conversation, things started becoming heavier, and that's where someone cracked. One of the people in the group started cooperating with investigators, and once that person started talking, the entire case shifted. What began as a missing persons investigation quickly turned into a homicide investigation. Um,
I guarantee you, one of them, especially if they weren't holding the gun or digging the hole,
yeah,
one of them
yeah,
said, "Look, man, I was there. I told them not to, but they didn't listen to me." I guarantee you that's how that came about.
probably. The witness did describe the plan, the drive out to the foothills, the confrontation, the grave, and the shooting. But what they provided with investigators was what was very critical. They provided
Uh-huh.
the location where Rachel's body had been buried. So that was the breakthrough investigators needed because they now had a directive, a narrative, and a place to search. And if what they were being told was true, they were not looking for a missing girl anymore. They're looking for a grave. So investigators turned their attention to the foothills. The description wasn't perfect. It was a remote area, dirt roads, tree lines, uneven terrain, but they had enough to begin. So they started moving throughout the region, working methodically, looking for disturbed ground, anything that stood out in an otherwise natural landscape. And eventually they found it, the piece of earth that looked different. So they began digging, and as they began removing the dirt, there was the body of Rachel Burkheimer. It was a shallow grave, but it was just as was described, the location, the concealment, the very hurried burial. Everything was lining up with what the witness said. For Rachel's family, as you can imagine, this discovery was devastating. You know, they had hope that she would still be alive, but now it's officially shifted to a homicide investigation. For investigators, they now had a body, a crime scene, and a witness statements, and now a growing list of suspects. There was physical evidence at the site which helped corroborate what had been described. All of it reinforced the narrative investigators had been given. And once Rachel's body had been found, this investigation moved quickly. Detectives were not asking questions anymore. They're going to be making arrests. They had statements and the cooperating witness, the burial site. Now they needed to get everybody in custody because this is where the scope of the crime gets very, very clear. It wasn't just one killer, it wasn't two people, this was a group. And over time, 8 individuals were arrested. Excuse me.
Conspiracy to commit murder, capital murder because it was premeditated. And
Well, capital murder is murder um, done as escalation to a crime. Kidnapped her, then they murdered her. There's your capital murder
capital
right there.
murder. Yeah.
If you rob a house and you kill somebody in that house, you've done capital murder. Capital
Mhm.
murder is
I thought capital
murder
murder was premeditated.
doesn't have no that can just be murder. If you just murder, go up and uh, so don't red flag me, government. If I just say I'm going to go kill Ziggy and I go kill Ziggy out in the open, I haven't really committed a second crime along with it, so it's just murder. It's premeditated, but it's murder. Capital
It's
murder
premeditated.
is
Okay. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No, no,
Cap,
that makes perfect sense.
capital murder, which is the only one eligible for the death sentence, is any murder that is done in the commission of another crime, killing multiple people, killing a judge in the line of duty, or killing a firefighter or a policeman in the line of duty. Those are all your I think I've got all of those right, if I recall correctly. Those are all your capital crimes.
Okay.
Um, so yes, but they kidnap. So yes, this is capital murder now.
Just capital murder.
Yep.
Okay.
So 8 individuals were arrested with the kidnapping and murder. Some had participated in the planning, some were present during the killing, others had helped restrain her, dig the grave, transport her, or conceal it afterwards. John Diggy Anderson, the ex-boyfriend, he was identified as the shooter. According to the witness statement, he was the one who stepped forward and fired the shots, but the others were not bystanders. They helped lure Rachel to the meeting. They helped drive her to the location. Some participated, some helped dig, some helped bury her afterwards. So investigators were working through each person's involvement very carefully so they could build charges on their individual roles. Because even if someone didn't pull the trigger, participation, as Ziggy had said, in a planned kidnapping and murder still carries consequences. That's conspiracy right there.
Yeah. Conspiracy to
Um,
commit murder, baby.
yes. So as the arrests were made, more details began emerging. And as each person was brought into custody, the statements started shifting. Some tried to minimize their involvement. As Ziggy said, I didn't do it. I didn't do anything, but I saw it. Some were pointing fingers, some were cooperating in exchange for reduced charges. Um, but the prosecution started structuring the case very strategically. They had defendants who would testify, and some would plead, others would go to trial. But what was clear to them is every single person present that night now had to face the reality of what they'd done. There was an 18-year-old girl who had been kidnapped, forced to watch her own grave being dug, and murdered. So this is now where the justice system needed to work through every single person responsible. And because so many people were involved, the legal process became very complex very quickly. Because you don't have one defendant, you have multiple defendants, which means multiple attorneys, multiple plea deals, and multiple courtroom proceedings that would stretch over time. So prosecutors had to approach this very methodically. Um, they had individuals who chose to cooperate. In exchange for their testimony, they got reduced charges. This allowed prosecutors to build stronger cases against those seen as directly responsible, particularly the shooter. Um, and once the testimonies began, the details became even clearer and more disturbing because the witnesses described conversations leading up to the murder. They talked about the suspicion towards Rachel and the belief that she had betrayed the group and their decision to lure her out under false pretenses. Some testified that Rachel begged for her life, that she tried to convince them she hadn't done anything wrong, and that she pleaded with these people that she knew, hoping someone would step in, but no one did. The testimony also established the group dynamic. This was not chaos. It was not a sudden outburst. This had been something that had been very carefully discussed and planned beforehand, carried out with multiple people doing very specific roles. And the prosecution emphasized that point repeatedly. This was a coordinated killing. Defense attorneys, on the other hand, they tried to argue their clients didn't believe that the murder would actually happen. They claimed that they were just afraid to intervene, and some attempted to shift the blame solely as John Anderson as the primary actor. But the prosecution pushed back on this because even if someone didn't fire the gun, they helped create the situation. They helped bring Rachel there. They helped restrain her. They helped dig her
They didn't
grave.
stop it. They didn't try to stop it.
No, they absolutely did not stop it. And when you talk about a case like this, guess what, kids? Participation ribbon, it matters.
Yes, it does.
Um, so as the trial and the pleas progressed, convictions started following one by one. All that were involved were found guilty or accepted responsibility for their roles. The sentences that followed would reflect just how serious the court viewed their actions. So the focus shifted to sentencing. The penalties were severe. John Anderson got the harshest sentence. He was convicted of aggravated first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. So this is interesting. Aggravated first-degree murder. So for a crime to be aggravated, that means you do it in the commission of something else, another crime. That's how aggravated assault. I break into a house and I beat someone within an inch of their life. That's
Oh,
aggravated
oh, okay.
assault.
Aggravate. Yeah. Well,
So,
kidnapping.
correct. Right. The first degree murder was aggravated, but I'm not sure I understand the difference between aggravated and capital because capital holds the same. I need to look that up. Look that up for me. What is the difference between aggravated first degree murder and capital murder? Because I'm almost positive that capital has to happen in the commission of another crime. Um, anyway, he was convicted of aggravated first degree murder and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Rachel's family, this brought about some sort of justice. But John Anderson wasn't the only one that faced significant time. Several of the accomplices were also convicted of serious charges, including kidnapping, conspiracy, and murder-related offenses. They received decades-long sentences. Some were sentenced to life. Others received lengthy prison
The only
term,
difference is the potential for the death
the potential
penalty.
for the death penalty. Correct. Um,
Yeah,
so I think this was a
which
capital
means he
crime
talked.
too.
If they took the death penalty off the table, that means he talked.
I guess so.
He
I guess
talked.
so. Yeah. Um, so yeah, yeah, yeah. Some of the others received very lengthy prison terms, reflecting their involvement. The court did make something very, very clear. It wasn't a situation where only the shooter was going to be punished because everyone bore responsibility. Over the years, appeals began to surface. Some of the defendants had been teenagers at the time of the murder. So as legal standards evolved regarding sentences for juvenile offenders, there was opportunities for resentencing. Decades after this crime, some of the individuals sought reduced sentences under new legal interpretations. So the courts had to review their roles, their ages at the time, and whether life sentences without parole were appropriate. So this led to resentencing for some of the accomplices. In certain cases, sentences were reduced. In others, courts reaffirmed the original punishment. The outcome really kind of varied depending on the individual's involvement and the age at the time of the crime. The sad
I
thing is
imagine
that,
their cooperation with the police as
oh,
well
I'm sure,
probably
I'm
had a
sure.
pretty big factor on it. Yeah.
The sad thing is this reopened those painful wounds for Rachel's family who had to revisit the details of the murder again. Um, but the central fact, regardless of the appeals and review, the central facts never changed. Rachel Burkheimer had been lured by people she trusted. She was taken to a remote location. She was forced to to watch her grave being dug and murdered by a group acting together. Um, this really last, this really had lasting impact not just on her family but on the community and everyone who later learned the details because this was just an 18-year-old just entering adulthood. Her life ended in one of the most terrifying ways imaginable, surrounding by people she knew, by people she trusted, and by people who chose to not stop what was doing. This devastated her family. But what made it even more painful was the detail. The fact that she was forced to watch her own grave being dug, that she begged for her life, and that multiple people stood around and watched it happen. This was not just murder, it was a betrayal. And it's terrible that her family had to live through that and hear all those details. Um, the case overall really kind of became a stark example of how group dynamics can escalate violence. Individually, some of these people may probably never would have committed murder. But together, because they were reinforcing the fears and suspicions they had, they crossed a line that none of them came back from. And it's a pattern that's seen a lot in group crimes. Responsibility becomes shared and accountability becomes blurred. And individuals who might have stopped something alone, instead they become participants when surrounded by others who are egging things on. And Rachel's case really highlights how quickly that can happen. It really talks about how dangerous paranoia and loyalty tests can become in a very tightly knit group. The belief that Rachel betrayed him, whether true or not, became justification in their mind, and once that took hold, their ideals were irreversible. Um, Honestly, through it all, one thing remained consistent: Rachel's name continued to be remembered, not just as a victim of violence, but by someone whose story became a warning or really a reminder of how suspicion can quickly turn into tragedy, and honestly, how silence can be just as dangerous as the act itself. Um, in April of 2002, Rachel Burkheimer, she got into a car with people she believed were who were friends. She never came home. What followed was not a crime of impulse, and it wasn't a moment of sudden rage. This was a group decision, a shared choice, and one that escalated step by step until there was no turning back. This was 8 people, one remote location, one shallow grave, and an 18-year-old girl who sadly realized too late that the people around her had already decided her fate. Um, the story is disturbing not just because of how it happened, but because of how many opportunities there were for someone to stop it. Somebody could have spoken up. Someone could have refused. Someone could have helped her, but no one did. And unfortunately, because of that, Rachel Burkheimer became the victim of a chilling group murder. And that's the story of the murder of Rachel Burkheimer.
Well, thank you, sir.
You see how I kind of had to step away when I read that one.
Yeah.
That's one that's one as I talk about, it's a name that needs to continue to go out there because she was an 18-year-old. She was cut down in the prime of her life.
Yeah.
I talked at the very beginning as 18-year-olds were idiots, and I'm not calling her an idiot because she got in a car with friends. Um, I'm just saying the choices we make at 18 years old are very possibly not the most sane or stable ones. Zig and
Yeah.
I were that way. We
Hmm.
faced it. Zig and I faced through the 80s or through our 20s together. um, making a lot of questionable decisions. I can admit it. We just did. We weren't always the sanest of people in the things we did. We went out, we did stupid things. Now, were we committing crimes? No. We were just doing stupid things. Drinking too much that when we probably shouldn't have, being
Were
in cars when we
we?
shouldn't have.
Well, I mean, we may have been a lot or two.
We may have bent a law or two, but I don't think we actually
Yeah, we weren't
fractured
like
them or
robbing
broke.
houses or anything.
No, no, no. But, we were driving when we had had too much
Yeah,
and, just, putting ourselves in situations where we're lucky to be alive
yeah,
today.
picking up the odd traffic cone.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but this one was very different. This is
Yeah,
this is 18-year-olds that made a terrible choice, made an
yeah.
absolutely terrible choice, and a young girl that unfortunately died as the result of that. So that's my story for this week.
Well, thank you, sir.
Appreciate you sticking with me through that. We will get back to our A to Z serial killers across America. Um, So that will take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find more about us on nerderymurdery.com. That's our hub, our website. You'll find much more about us. You'll find links. Matter of fact, I need to edit I will edit the website today because I put a placeholder in for fire sign. I will fix that today so that there's a link to it. But anyway, you'll
Oh,
find
thank you.
various links as well as a link to our YouTube page, which Zig so often updates.
Yeah, check that YouTube page out. There's some really great scenes from these two films.
Cool.
Check them out. Yeah, at least you can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, appreciate the work you do on that.
Thank you.
You can also find the link to our merchandise and our Patreon. Both our merchandise and our Patreon help with the costs that are associated with this show. It helps us. It is not cheap to put on this show. There's our storage, our uploads, our website, everything that's associated with that for us to bring this show to you each and every single week. We do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And one thing you can also do, just like I said with the books, you can leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It helps us help others find our content that may be looking for the information that we discuss. And last, but certainly not least, to our good friend Chuck. You can go to sleep now.
Good night, Chuck.
Good night, Chuck. With that,
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
and I'm Jeffrey with your murdering.
Cue the music.